I just start.
Anytime you're ready, Alan.
Good morning. Welcome to worship at the Unitarian Society of Northampton and Florence. I'm Alan Dorman. Janet Spomberg and I are leading the service today, and Chris Stetson will be playing the service music. We are a congregation with a tradition of liberal faith and committed social action. We uphold the principles and values of our Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, and we strive to be a community where all are welcomed and included, without regard to age, race or background, sexual orientation, gender identity, or abilities. For many years, most of our summer services have been planned and led by members of the congregation. I am very glad to be here and to see you. I want to thank Lucy Baruch and Steve O'Day, our tech hosts, for their extreme patience and forbearance. If you are new and would like to receive our weekly emails news bulletin, please send an email to our office@uunorthampton.org. After the service, we invite you to stay for social hour, where we'll put you in a small group for conversation. We have assistance for our services to ensure our Zoom meetings go smoothly. We ask that you turn off your video until social hour by clicking on Stop Video on the bottom of your screen. Our helpers may do this for you. We will invite people to use the chat to say hi to everyone during the community greeting. Otherwise, we ask that you use the chat only for private messages so that it does not distract others. Also, the summer concert series, Live from the Sanctuary, continues this Sunday, today, at 4 p.m. The Society's incoming music director, pianist Lemuel Gertowski, will join the talented young mezzo-soprano Natalie Lewis, a rising senior at UMass Amherst, in a recital of art songs, opera arias, spirituals, and jazz. For more information and to see the program, please go to the series website, www.livefromsanctuary.org. The YouTube link for the concert will be available on the series website approximately 15 minutes prior to concert time on Sunday today. Donations to the Sanctuary Fund can be made via PayPal on the series website or on the USNF website. And now we will begin our service.
Good morning. I'm going to play the prelude on my shakuhachi. The Japanese name is O-Tai. It's the song that the wandering Komuso monks would play for each other when they met on the road. So I've given it the romantic title, The Greeting Song of the Wandering Monks of Emptiness. It's not a celebratory song. It's, judging from the nature of it, it's a time for them to reaffirm their vow to save all beings.
Good morning. The opening words are by you minister, the Reverend Kathleen McTighe. We come together this morning to remind one another to rest for a moment on the forming edge of our lives, to resist the headlong tumble into the next moment until we claim for ourselves awareness and gratitude, taking the time to look into one another's faces and see there communion, the reflection of our own eyes. And now we will light the chalice.
Please join in saying these words of Dag Hammarskjöld to accompany lighting our chalice. Each morning, we must hold out the chalice of our being, to receive, to carry, and give back. Please rise and join us in the
And before you sit down, it's time for our community greeting. It's wonderful to see you all. Please feel free to turn on your videos and type a message to everyone in the chat. Our tech host, the wonderful MC Steve O'Day, I will try to read as many of your messages as we can, and here they are coming in. Well, good morning from Kathy Lilly. Great to be here today.
Good morning, dear ones, from Elaine Apthorpe.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Janet, from Michael. Hey, Michael.
Diane and Craig say greetings from New Hampshire. Hi, all.
Joan, great to see you today. Oh, it's... Well, there's a lot of love and greetings and good mornings here and shining faces. And yes, it's great to be in the Great Hall, Sarah. Good morning. Great to be back in Northampton and at the Society, from Julie.
Paula and Wally say good morning and love.
From Georgia. How wonderful to be here with all you terrific news.
Sally Weiss says, singing with each other again. Hello.
David and Marjorie have a new puppy named Blaze.
Fran Adams says, love to everyone. Enjoy this day.
I think we're moving into time for our offering. If our tech hosts could give me a little.
Okay, so just a reminder to everybody, please turn off your videos. Otherwise, a Big Brother is going to have to do it for you. So turn off your video, mute yourself. And if you happen to switch to gallery view to be able to see everybody, you might want to change back to speaker view for the remainder of the service.
So now it really is time for our offering. Since March, we've been directing Sunday morning donations to our local COVID-19 relief fund. You may also choose to support the Society directly or contribute to our Sanctuary Fund or Irita's GoFundMe page. Please use the blue donate button on the home page of our website. What we do matters, and our generosity is making a difference. Steve will put the donation links in the chat. There it is. So now, while we continue this offering time, Chris is going to provide music for the offering while we enjoy Beth Ann Jedziniak's pictures taken at the DAR this summer.
Now we will pause for a moment of meditation. After the meditation, we'll have a time of silence. Our meditation this morning is by the poet Mary Oliver, Sleeping in the Forest. I thought the earth remembered me. She took me back so tenderly, arranging her dark skirts, her pockets full of lichens and seeds. I slept as never before, a stone on the riverbed, nothing between me and the white fire of the stars but my thoughts, and they floated light as moths among the branches of the perfect trees. All night, I heard the small kingdoms breathing around me, the insects and the birds who do their work in the darkness. All night I rose and fell, as if in water, wrapping with a luminous doom. By morning, I had vanished at least a dozen times into something better. Let's take a moment together in silence. Now please join us in the singing of our next hymn, Morning Has Broken.
We have two readings this morning. The first reading is adapted from Paul's letter to the Corinthians in the Christian Bible. That's the chapter, the famous near love chapter, but it's from a different part. And the part that I'm going to read as adapted is used in liturgies for the communion service, a ritual meal of remembrance and atonement. Its words, familiar to me since childhood, have been echoing in my mind and heart all summer long. It's a refrain I cannot escape. And these are the words, "This is my body, broken for you. This is my body, broken for you." The words and concepts of the communion may be familiar to you or not, and are not a part of our congregation's regular liturgical practice. Although some Unitarian Universalist churches do celebrate communion, most often in a recast and metaphoric way. To talk about this fully, to explore the ways that we might derive meaning from it, or to delve into its complexity are far beyond our means this morning. Broken bodies, however, and our struggle to properly remember the sacrifices of others are, I think, a theme that we can understand. So here's the part that I wanted to read. The night he was arrested, Jesus took bread, and after giving thanks, he broke it and gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take, eat. This is my body, broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me." In the same way, after supper, he took the cup, saying, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this whenever you drink it in remembrance of me. For as often as you eat this bread and drink from this cup, you proclaim my death." The second reading is by the UU minister, the Reverend Dr. Mark Morrison Reed. The central task of the religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind us, each to all. There's a connectedness, a relationship discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice. It is the church that assures us that we are not struggling for justice on our own, but as members of a larger community. The religious community is essential, for alone our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength too limited to do all that must be done. Together, our vision widens and our strength is renewed. And now we'll sing the next hymn together, Spirit of Life. Friends, it's good to be with you. Alan, my husband, Chris, and I greet you from the Great Hall with our wonderful tech team, Lucy and Steve, who have been holding us up through the ether very well this morning, I think. This is a service that we've celebrated for several years now in the beautiful open-air tabernacle at Laurel Park, bathed in the sweet breezes of late summer against the faint hum of Route 5 traffic, with the rituals of gathering and reunion in the air as community members from the larger community join us and enlarge our circle, with children and others free to get up and play around the edges, encircling us with a fringe of delight. But this year, of course, is different. It keeps unfolding in ways we could not have imagined in this spring and summer that have brought much suffering, but focused our eyes, ears, and hearts with laser-like precision on what we share and what divides us. We have been separated physically, but not socially. We have seen less of each other, but valued it more. The fine line between loss and love, life and death, has helped us understand what we value and what is worthy of our attention. In the beginning, tales of valor and encouragement rose like sourdough from the dens and balconies and YouTube videos of the world. There were other stories of exhaustion, despair, and grief, stories too hard to tell as we muddled through, stories that united and divided us. Some of us experienced the pandemic in our closest circle and lost family members directly or indirectly to COVID, deprived of the ability to visit, to grieve, to ritually mark those losses within the circle of community. Those of us privileged with quiet shifted even more deeply toward attending to this larger, more difficult story as witnesses. The differences between needs and wants formed a chasm in front of us as the essential and inessential formed fault lines that corresponded to the deep inequities of our society. We were all part of that story, and the story was complex and interwoven. And then came the moment in May when George Floyd was murdered. A moment of shared attention, grief, and rage, experienced as many of us had just stopped long enough to tune our attention to the delicate unfolding of spring into summer, 8 minutes and 46 seconds of pure terror and agony. A man's life taken by an agent of the state as if it were just another day at work, which apparently it was. As he cried for his life, for mercy, for his mother, his humanity was laid on the table before us. It felt as though the earth shook. I know I have heard from many in this congregation another kind of cry, cries of deep empathy, and those cries often leading to a sense of guilt, expressions of personal despair from people already engaged with the work of social justice, feelings of deep remorse, of shame, of not being enough, of not knowing enough, of having too much, of doing too little. I keep noticing this, and I think this is also a subject worthy of our attention. I want to say to you, when I hear this, that we are all hurting and need to be restored, that seeing our own hurt as invalid deepens the divides between us, rather than closing it up. But it's hard. How do we calibrate our awareness and our actions appropriately in the knowledge of so much injustice? And how do we distinguish between our roles as individuals and as part of interlocking systems that we know raise some and crush others? How do we find our way to becoming part of one body, the sacred body of life, of which we are a part? In most Christian liturgical traditions, the communion ritual offers a ritual meal that memorializes the death of Jesus as a means of redemption, of literally or figuratively becoming one body, a kind of remembering that is connecting and healing. Those long lines of cars in parking lot communion services in the early pandemic showed the need that many people felt to partake in this ritual, to receive the sacrifice, and to begin again, to become whole in themselves and connected to a larger body. In the wake of George Floyd's death, some framed his unwilling death, and this was understandable, very controversial, as a sacrifice that could put a stop to the killings of Black people. Not saying that he offered himself, but begging for meaning from a senseless act, wishing to see the potential for redemption in this loss, a body broken for us, not to afflict us, but to save us from further suffering by connecting him and us to the countless other Black lives taken, lives stretching back 400 years, those unnamed and unnameable. And I would say that I understand this, and I understand the objection to framing it in this way as well. At USNF, we are mostly, but certainly not exclusively, privileged, white, and educated. It can be hard to feel that it is valid to tend to our own broken humanity, but we must, because we believe that each life is important, that each person has worth and dignity. We are all tired. We all need rest. In our awareness of our own grief and our own frailty, we must seek rituals that connect us to each other and to the web of life, not, crucially, as the webmaster, but as a small piece, right-sized and common, a pixel in the web of humanity, common as dust. I'm saying this to you because I need it too. As I may have said or implied every summer sermon of my adult life, religion is remedial for me. I am a slow learner. I know many of you very well and see in the squares before me those who know and do better than I can, religious adepts whose suffering and joy, whose bodies and minds appear to live in greater harmony. But because I'm really bad at this, and because the weight of this moment has frozen me in a hot time, frozen me, body and mind, into despair, I want to tell you where I've most recently found some redemption and ask you some questions. And these are the questions. How do you find the place to be okay? How often do you take time to restart, to allow yourself to be a human among humans, to partake in communion with all of life? Breaking from our spiritual tradition of questing, I actually have a partial answer to this question just for myself. I'm not just going to float the question. And I acknowledge from the outside that my answer reveals one of the whitest things about me, which is being able to swim well. But I hope you'll also see that it's not really about that alone. I have found communion this summer at the DAR, the Goshen Ocean, Upper Highland Lake, a state park with a lake open to all daily. The friendly rangers, the priests of the park, in their gray-green habits and masks, wave you in, clean the bathrooms, and raise and lower the state and park flags at dawn and dusk to mark the edges of the day. People from all over show up there to swim, to grill, to splash and walk, to gaze, to read, to stop, to lounge, to cool, to blast hip hop out of boom boxes upon occasion. It is always the same there and always different. A little congregation of later swimmers may strike up an acquaintance or silently glide into the water with their swim buoys, glad to be able to swim out far into the lake after the teenage lifeguards have taken their whistles home. On a single evening last week, I was able to converse in Spanish with a Central American family and meet a family from Belarus days after that disputed election. There they were in Goshen, like foreign emissaries provided by the Park Service. That would be the Belarusians, by the way. Being with people, as people, might be more likely at a state park than elsewhere. Stop for a moment and consider that we have in our Commonwealth a Department of Conservation and Recreation calling us to stop and rest and reconnect. Despite this, it took a pandemic to cancel my daily dip in chlorinated water and bring me to the source, to float on the surface of our planet, held up by the watery skin of Earth, to glimpse paradise. This is what I mean by remedial. Poetry surrounds us. In that lake, I have been invited spontaneously to swim out by a group of women who meet at a lake every night at 6:30 to swim and talk. In the center of the lake, at sunset, under huge skies, one of those women told me that her daughter had died last year at 13 in an accident. Treading dark water, we managed to talk a bit about it. On another shore, a man told me that he had lost his wife 5 years ago. This was fresh on his mind. His aged companion told me that she canoes out until just before the ice comes in. I have met many dogs, a physical therapist and an electrical engineer, the granddaughter of a policeman in Wakefield, Mass., and old friends, some of whom are here today. A mother on the beach remembered Chris from a time when her toddler melted down in a grocery store and how kind he had been about it. A nurse who is also a body worker lamented, and this is in the water, mind you. Some of these conversations were on the beach, but some were in the water. The nurse conversation was in the water. A nurse who is also a body worker lamented the advent of data-driven management that had managed the humanity right out of a local human services agency in 6 short months. There are visiting grandparents there, curious kids, of course, Brooklyn refugees moving back, but worried about leaving their community connections behind. I have met our own Beth Ann Jedziniak and her friend Judy, who are, judging by their regular swimming practice, way more religious than I am. It is literally all there on that lake that sometimes contains no one but us and the ducks. One night, a young duck showed me how he picks blueberries with his bill from the water, paddling and straining up to get just one at a time. I think he knew I was watching, and I think he was showing off. But mostly, it is just stroke, 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 breathe, glide, gaze, look, stretch, breathe. No lap lines, no rush, maybe that rock on the other side for a target. My husband, Chris, sits on a bench to read a book about the failed attempt to end slavery without civil war on his phone while he waits for me to emerge. Arms grow a little stronger, green-white in the light as they pull through the lake water at dusk. Body and mind feeling whole again, feeling connected again, feeling just right, feeling in communion with something too vast to hold. I wish all of us the experience of connection, of shared spaces, public spaces in nature, where you can get by without a mask at a distance, of the experience of religion as our most mundane and frequent act, daily moments of redemption that keep us connected to the larger body of which we all are a part. May we all find our way back to the source. And now, we're getting to the end of the service. Chris will offer a postlude on his shakuhachi before Alan shares closing words, and our tech hosts invite you into conversation following this service. We'll now hear our prelude, our postlude.
The closing words are by Frederick E. Gillis. May the love that overcomes all differences, that heals all wounds, that puts to flight all fears, that reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us, now and always. Go in peace.